Mike, you notice I didn't walk towards her. Just trying to learn from my mistakes. I did, and then I realized. All right, so let me give you an introduction. This week we're talking about I act to help you. The act of helping the other person. So empathy, which we've been talking about this whole series of empathy. Hopefully you've been getting little tidbits of how to learn how to empathize with your mate, and not only your mate, but with other people. But empathy changes you. It will change you as a person once you understand empathy. It awakens us to a new way of acting. And acting is the third essential step in trading places. If you've been with us for any period of time, and you've been going through the series with us, we've been learning the essentials in trading places to learn how to empathize with the other person. Once that we temporarily set aside our own agenda, once we turn on our emotional radar, then we're ready to take action. And then we become ready to demonstrate a whole new level of understanding toward our spouses. Here's the sequence that takes place. Number one, the payoff of trading places occurs in the acting to help phase. See, the first two steps are just merely a means to get you and your partner to a new place where acts of kindness, acts of consideration, and benevolence, so that it envelops your relationship, or it just covers your relationship. As it's often said in trading places seminars, to feel with stirs us to act for. In other words, to feel for the other person inspires us to act for the other person. You have to be inspired to be able to help the other person, to empathize with the other person. Listen, you have two choices in your life. If you made a commitment and you've gotten married and you've taken those vows seriously and you did them under the eyes of God, it says till death do you part. So you can live and be miserable because you can't figure out exactly what the situation is, or you choose to do what you have to do to make your situation the best that it can be. And if both of you are able to make that decision and work towards making the situation the best that it can be, then a lot of things follow. One of them being, I become selfless, and I just work towards what I can do for the other person. One of them is, I lose my pride, because it's not all about you. It's about the other person. And so when we start to make those things happen, then you start to see something happen to the other person. I was talking to somebody this morning that I had met with previously, and they have very simple, it's a very normal occurrence where one of the spouses reaches out for help. The other spouse is to the point where they basically haven't left, they haven't done anything, but they've given up. They'll sit there and it's like living a separate life in the same place, and you're more like roommates than you are husband and wife. And the one spouse reached out, and we talked, and we talked about, I don't have anything special to say other than the fact of everything that I've learned in and through this class, just like some of you have been able to pour into other people by the things that you've learned and the tools that you've gathered by attending this class. And I was just encouraging, and I think I met with this person once or twice. And they've been coming to the class pretty much ever since the time that we met, and I finally got the opportunity to say, hey, what's going on? How have things progressed? And a smile came to their face, and they said, good. I said, really? So what? Well, things have changed because my attitude has changed, because, I realize that I can make the difference. And how has that affected your spouse? Well, good. They see that and they're responding, and so I'm sitting here and I'm going, wow, this stuff really works. For 7 years I've been teaching it, and I've been preaching it, and Claudina's been putting up with me during those whole 7 years, and the whole thing is the final realization is this stuff really works. And so that's an encouragement to me. It's like, it's not in vain. We've seen countless marriages being saved. We've seen relationships taken on a whole new perspective because of the things that we put into practice. And if you really take it seriously, and it's not just a way for you to get out of service, or for you to spend some kind of time on a Sunday morning, or, hey, what the heck, it's like a free continental breakfast, let's just go there and then we can go on with our day. If you're coming for a specific reason to really learn, and you're open to that, then it's going to happen. So the payoff can be huge. And when we feel, and we get the other person to feel, and that stirs us to action, things will take place. I'm really glad, and I know that Claudina shares in my feeling about this, that you're along with us on this effort to build our marriage skills. That is paramount. And I wish our heart's greatest desire is that we fill this room to where we have to do this 2 times on a Sunday, 3 times on a Sunday, 4 times a week, because our heart is to save relationships and prepare people for the relationships that they're going to get in, because bottom line is they're going to get in relationships. And we want to make it the best that we possibly can. And so I'm very confident in the fact that God honors what we're doing and that he's going to bless it. And pretty soon we will not be able, we moved 3 times since we've started this ministry. And I pray that our biggest problem is finding a place big enough to hold all of us. I pray that's our biggest problem.
Through the years and all of the information that we've gathered, because it's been countless, I can't even remember how many lessons and videos and things that we've done, the information that I have received, I have been able to pour out to other people that are not able to come because they don't live in the area. And there is at least 2 marriages that have been saved because the wives called me and it was just a misunderstanding and they didn't understand, they didn't communicate correctly, and just in conversation and sharing the information with them, I was able to show them, where maybe they needed to improve or where the misunderstandings were. And there's 2. So every single one of us in here is a little ambassador for marriage. You can go out and share. If you know of somebody that's struggling in their marriage, or somebody that's going to get married, or somebody that, whatever, just tell them about this class if they live in the area. But you also pour in the wisdom that you've learned so that they have a chance at making it.
And we've seen that happen. So just for some of you that, there's always newer people, just real quick before we get into the video, because we're already 20 minutes into today, how many of you can honestly raise your hand and say, my relationship has taken a turn for the better from the tools that I've gathered through this class? Okay. I'd say majority. That's majority rules. And if you didn't raise your hand, it's because you don't come enough or you're not putting them into practice. That's all I got to say. So, let's go to the video.
I'm really excited about this week. Things are really starting to come together. We've learned about noticing one another, about feeling with one another, and now step 3. Let's get started.
Well, here we are in session 5. We're at the 3rd of the 3-step process on how to put yourself in your partner's shoes. Now we're at step number 3, which has to do with your care quotient. This is I act to help you. Somebody said that empathy without action is pretty meaningless. And we agree, right?
Yeah, it's really where the rubber meets the road. I mean, this is where it leaps into action and changes happen that really transform our relationship. I've always loved the words of Jesus in Matthew 5 when he says, "You're blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, you'll find yourselves cared for." I've always loved that because it talks about the win-win that comes with true empathy, the care that flows out of that really comes back as a blessing to you too.
We throw that phrase around, take care, so randomly, and carelessly, if you will, then it kind of loses its meaning. But there's this care quotient in our marriage, almost that you could measure with a thermometer, you know, that how much are we investing care in this relationship?
Exactly.
How careful are we being with one another?
Exactly. And that care quotient really is where we leap into action and act to help our spouse.
What's the use? I know what's going to happen. I'll walk in the house, we won't talk, she'll throw together some scrambled eggs or something.
Oh, sure. You want to spend another night in the garage, right?
No, of course not.
Well, then you better do something about it.
Like what?
Well, I don't know, get her a present.
She'd throw me out with it.
Not to get her something she can't turn down. You know, something she's always wanted.
Yeah, like maybe a season ticket to the fights.
Wait, I got it. I know what to get her. I know what'll make her happy. Buddy, do me a favor.
Sure, what?
Call Laura and tell her I am bringing home a surprise.
All right. Hey, Sally, do me a favor, will you?
Yeah.
Yeah, call Laura and tell her that I said that Rob said he'd come home with a surprise.
Well, why me? Why can't you call her?
I don't know the number.
Why you checking? Hello, Marge. Did you call Mrs. Petrie and tell her I said that Buddy told me that Rob asked him to tell her that Rob's coming home with a surprise? And I'll give you 8 to 5, I can't repeat it. Oh, really? That looks beautiful. That's just great. Now, let's see. I got the spaghetti sauce simmering. Salad's in the refrigerator. Millie, thank you for helping me with all this. You, knew that I exaggerated about Rob, didn't you? No, the way you told it, he sounded a lot like my Jerry. Mommy! Yes, dear. What are we having for dinner? Something delicious. Ah, gee, I like hamburger. I know, darling, but this is Daddy's evening. Okay. Now, what have I forgotten? What's wrong? Oh, really? Why am I so nervous? Now, calm down and I'll slip out the back door. No, really, don't leave me. Relax, he's your husband.
Could it be that simple? Putting the other person ahead of ourselves, thinking about them first? I think the Petrie's got it. How about you?
Now, if you're looking for the telltale sign of whether or not your care quotient is operating at full capacity, I want to point you to probably the most profound relationship principle that's ever been taught. And it was taught by Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. In fact, this one was driven home for me years ago when I went to Rome, Italy with my dad. Remember
That's
this?
right. Yeah, we acquired some miles, which I just couldn't travel. The boys were at a stage, and I suggested you take your dad and go on a trip.
Yeah, and so I said, great, called Dad, said, let's go to Rome, Italy. And we jumped on an airplane, had a great time. We were having dinner there in the hotel, I think on the third night that we were there. He reminded me of something I remember studying as a seminary student about the Sermon on the Mount. In the days of that time in the Roman Empire, there was a Roman law required of all little kids in any village in the empire. They were required by law to carry a Roman soldier's backpack 1 mile from their home down the lane to give that soldier kind of a break, give him a
Just to give
rest.
him a rest.
Yeah, and so you would find these stakes in the ground all over the place because these little guys would go out, put a stake in it to know how far that Roman mile was,
Sure.
so they could carry the backpack, put it on the other side. There,
They know when they'd accomplished their legal duty, and they were free.
Right. So knowing this was common practice, Jesus used it as an illustration in his sermon and pointed to this fact and gave us one of the greatest relationship principles ever when he said, hey, if somebody asks you to go 1 mile with them, blow their mind. Go another mile they don't see coming. Do something that is so radically unexpected. That's how you put your care quotient into practice.
Exactly.
That's when you begin to put that into practice. If that's all you did in your marriage, if this is all you get from this 6-week series with us, is to practice the extra mile, it'll be enough to radically improve your marriage.
It is an amazing thing when it comes to increasing your care quotient. And it doesn't have to be, sometimes we get the idea, okay, if I'm going to walk the extra mile, that's going to be something extraordinary. I mean, that's going to take planning and
Budgeting, and
yeah,
I got to get a
exactly.
spreadsheet, and I got to really figure out how to make this happen. No, you can walk the extra mile in dramatic ways and in little ways. Before this evening, this day is done, you will have an opportunity to walk the extra mile.
So, did you get the fill-ins? No? First fill-in was what? Okay. Did you get anyone not get the second one? Or which ones do you need? Tell you what, let me ask you a question. Everyone who has a notebook, I want to see it. Let me see your notebooks. How many of you have a notebook and didn't bring it?
I've got one, but I haven't bring it.
Oh, man. Thank God, no. Thank God this isn't a class, because I'll be taking off points. Okay, how many of you have never gotten a notebook? 2, 3, 4 of you? You know you can't lie, you're in church, right? Okay. All right, I have to get some more. I'll have some by next week if you've never gotten a notebook. Folks, I take the time to make sure that these are 3-hole punched and that they're stapled. And that's for you to put them in your notebook so that you can go back and refer to them at any given notice at some point in your life, or even turn somebody else on to this information. If you are not doing that, you are causing yourself a disservice. It is not hard to take the lesson, put it in the notebook, bring your notebook every week. Okay? Just, that's not a, I'm not trying to come off harsh or anything like that, but that's really good information that you should be putting away. So, with that said, who needs a fill-in? Yes? Second. Which was, you're blessed when you care at the moment of being? Careful. Okay? What else?
Careful what? It has 2 dashes.
Okay. Y'all are confusing each other. Stop. Okay. It's like extra mile. Jesus is the measure by which we should measure our extra mile. No, that's not right. Going the extra mile can radically increase the care quotient in your marriage. Okay? Everyone got them all now?
No.
All right.
No, I missed them all.
What? Jesus is the measure by which we should measure our... Oh my God. This is not remedial marriage class.
Care.
Okay.
Care. The first word, care.
Did you get the one that you needed, Allan? Allan? Did you get the one you needed? Yes? Yes.
Here. Full.
Oh, it's not one word. No.
Okay, how about this? If you miss one, get with somebody else after class. Okay?
Okay.
I mean, wow. I am sending you all to the principal's office. Okay? All right, in your opinion, why is empathy without action so meaningless? If you have empathy and you don't put it into action, isn't that pretty useless?
Yep.
Right? If you learn something, listen, if you go to the batting cages and learn how to bat, the worst thing you could possibly do is never play.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're learning empathy, if you're not putting it into action, you can't say, well, don't you understand? Can't you feel the way that I feel? Oh yeah, I can. I'm just not. I choose not to put it into practice. That's kind of useless, right? I mean, if you're coming here on Sundays and you're learning this great information, we should be putting it into practice, even if it's just, no one says you got to go home and put everything into practice every day right away. You know, you go home and you start pounding on your spouse. Okay, this is today. I mean, we gotta do this. We just gotta do all of it, like now. Put it into effect. Empathize. Close your eyes. Empathize. Empathize. If you just take steps every week towards reaching that goal, it's going to happen eventually.
And I think it's important to understand that your spouse is unique and different. So we're talking about the batting cages. We have 3 kids that play ball. Our daughter played softball, she was probably the best. And the boys played baseball, and they were all very good, but they were all different. So everybody's different, and understand that if your spouse doesn't get it right away, just give them time. Give them time to learn the lesson. Who cares if Susie's husband got it right away, and they look like they have this incredible relationship, and you're coming home and your spouse isn't quite understanding what, maybe it takes them a little longer. Be patient, it's okay. If they're coming to this class, that's a big deal.
Yeah. We always give people credit just for the fact of, if someone comes to counseling, it's because they care enough to go for counseling. If you're coming to this class, it's because you're willing to invest in your relationship. I've so gotten away from the fact that I used to start the class by saying, okay, go on your Facebook and put in, I'm investing in my relationship with Fusion Marriage. And I still see people do it every week without the encouraging, but you should do that. And you should let people know, hey, I'm investing in my relationship, so that somebody asks you, well, what do you mean? What is fusion? What is all that? That's an open door. Right? Mm-hmm. What's a lot? 10 is good. I'll go with 10. So, let me ask you a question. How many of you can actually say that you've seen the other person in your relationship go that extra mile for you? How many of you have seen that? Okay? So, if you've seen that happen, how do you feel when your mate goes the extra mile for you? Special? Like little yellow bus special, or different kind of special? Okay. So here's the thing: is that Claudina made a really good point a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about one of our kids, and she was referring to the way a man, or maybe it wasn't necessarily a man, but maybe a young adult or a child thinks. And she would say, okay, well, I told one of our kids to do this. And so they did it, but they did the absolute minimum. The absolute minimum. It's like, do this for me, and then they do it, and they do the minimum. It's like, I should have said, do this, and this for me, so you can follow all the steps. I don't remember exactly what it was. You probably do, because that's just how you roll. But you don't have to, going the extra mile means you don't have to be explaining everything that needs to be done. You can figure that out, and you take those steps to make that happen without putting yourself out. It's amazing because it's like, we don't want to get put out for other people, but at the same time, a lot of us don't even want to be put out by our own spouses. It's like, well, that's an inconvenience for me. Hello? Marriage is all about inconvenience. You laugh at that, but I'm not kidding you. Sometimes it's inconvenient to be married if you are a selfish person. You ain't never lied, Peter. You ain't never lied. It's true. We are by nature selfish people. Yep. And so when it comes time to do something for somebody else, my wife catches me all the time. When she asked me to do something. You didn't have to roll your eyes. I didn't roll my eyes. It's like you interrupted what I was doing. What were you doing? Nothing, but that's not the point. I was doing nothing for me, Sometimes I need nothingness in my life. Right? I was sitting there, I wasn't even watching TV, I was doing nothing, and I was enjoying it. And so sometimes you think, do they ask you to do something just because they think that you look too comfortable? I need to ask you, oh my God, can I just rest for just 2 seconds? No, can you? And it's always like, I live in a 2-story house. Everything that I get asked, if I'm upstairs, it's something downstairs. If I'm downstairs, it's something upstairs. Okay? Do you mind going to get this? Do you mind? Do you mind? No. I don't mind at all. And then you stomp your way up the stairs like a 4-year-old getting sent to their room. Going the extra mile for your spouse.
So you make 2 by 1-story house?
Oh, believe me, if I could sell my house tomorrow and go to a one-story, you better believe it. Okay? With a shed in the back, fully furnished. They call it a casita. I would call it mi casita. So going the extra mile for your spouse makes all the difference in the world. Can you imagine? I know that the ladies would be like, oh my gosh, if he could just do it without me having to tell him, and he could just like understand where my heart is, and I didn't have to explain everything to him like he was a puppy dog, I would be so happy. Yes. And yeah, no, let's stop, because we'll get into it big. I understand, I empathize with you, okay? I can put myself in your position because I get that from my wife. If she just wishes that, you know, you could just don't go to that first step, figure out the rest of the steps, okay? I get that. So going that second mile, it means a whole lot to the other person. You know what I mean? It's not just a matter of, hey, can you take this and put it in the trash? Sure I can. And the trash is overflowing to the point that it's falling on the floor. But you're going to push it down just enough to where the next person that goes in there, maybe they'll be inspired. But if you put that stuff in the trash and then took out the trash, okay, and then you figure, okay, well, someone else will see the empty trash can and put a bag in it. No, put the bag in it too. Okay, I know it sounds something simple, stupid, but it's going the extra mile. Even putting the bag in the can. And then, once you put the bag in the can, make a little hole in it so it doesn't puff up with air so that everything gets stuck in there. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. Because like you go, there's 3 things in there and things like, who does that? Just take your finger and poke a hole in it, man, right? Alright, let's go to the next part of the video.
One of the most inspirational stories we've ever encountered was told by Jennifer Rothschild.
It was a very crowded bus, and all the passengers looked sympathetically as Susan made her way down the aisle. She fumbled her cane, and as she nestled herself into her seat, the onlookers just watched with questions and concern. You see, it had been a year since Susan lost her sight. And when she first became blind, she fell into a deep pit of depression. Her world had crumbled. Her sadness overtook her. Not only was her heart crushed, but so was the heart of her husband, Mark. He so loved his wife, and he so wanted to help her, and so he did. Inch by inch, he helped pull her out of that pit of depression, helped give her skills and confidence, helped her regain her sense of self. And that husband, so in love with his wife, did all that he could to help her in her new state of darkness. Well, after many months of Susan's blindness, she began to feel more confident because of Mark's help, and she felt like she could perhaps return to her job again. And Mark promised that he would help her, of course, with that also. And so every day, Mark would drive his wife to work, and then he'd walk her into the office, make sure she was settled. He would leave and go to his base that was across town, because you see, Mark was a military officer. Then he would, of course, come back and get her from work. This went on and on for several weeks. And with every day, though Mark so wanted to help his wife, the burden was becoming heavier because it was becoming logistically impossible for him to make it to his base on time. He dreaded having to announce to Susan that he wasn't going to be able to drive her to work. He knew what her response would be, but finally, after many days of pondering, he finally announced to Susan that she would need to take the bus to work. She responded just as he had dreaded. I can't ride the bus to work. I'm blind. How am I going to know how many stairs there are? How am I going to know what path to take? I feel like you are abandoning me. Mark's heart was crushed. But he promised her, like he had done from the very beginning, he would do whatever it took, and he would help his wife until she felt confident and independent on the bus. And that's exactly what he did. He helped her with the routes. He helped her learn the stairs. He helped her learn the paths. And so finally, after several weeks of doing such, Susan was confident. Monday morning came. She flung her arms around Mark with this new renewed confidence and enthusiasm, gratefulness, and for the first time since her blindness, they parted ways. He went to his base. She went to her work. Monday morning, she got on the bus. She went to work. She came home. It was flawless. Tuesday morning, flawless. Wednesday morning, she got on the bus. She came home, flawless. Thursday, flawless. And then Friday morning arrived. Susan made her way onto the bus. And as she went to pay her fare, the bus driver said, "Ma'am, you sure are lucky." She paused for a minute. You see, when you're blind, you really don't know if someone is speaking to you if they don't use your name. So, of course, in her confusion, she thought, well, he couldn't be talking to me, because why would he say a blind woman is lucky? It's taken me a year just to have the confidence to do the simplest tasks. Certainly he can't be talking to me. But she asked, "Are you talking to me?" And the bus driver said, "Well, yeah, it just must feel good to be as cared for as you are." By that time, Susan was completely confused. And so she asked, "I don't know what you mean, sir." The bus driver said, "Well, you know, every morning when I drop you off at your stop, as soon as those doors open, I can see that man standing over there at the corner. And he watches you. As soon as you step off the bus, his eyes are on you. And I think he's some kind of military officer because of his uniform. And his eyes follow you as you walk across that parking lot. And his eyes don't leave you as you're trying to walk up those stairs. And when your hand touches that doorknob, his eyes are on you. Until you open that door and go inside, that man does not take his eyes off of you. And once that door closes, he stands straight and tall, like a sentinel, and he salutes you, and then he blows you a kiss." Susan burst into tears. She had no idea that her husband, Mark, had been watching her.
Before this evening, this day is done, you will have an opportunity to walk the extra mile. We do it in big ways, we do it in little ways.
I know for me, Saturday night, I got home late from a meeting. It was like 7 p.m. I was hungry. I knew my family would be, and you surprised me by showing up with Thai food.
I did.
It was awesome, and you even remembered I have to have brown rice, or else I can't have it. I cannot tell you what that did for me. It relieved me, and it was just one of those care portion moments. It was the extra mile.
Well, and it goes both ways, and the more we do that from each other, the better life is, the sweeter life is. Well, and that's the result of empathy, right? These 3 steps, when you begin to say, "I notice you," not literally say it, but with your actions, right? And your mentality and your attitude.
And then I feel with you. Reveal that you get the feelings, you're sharing that experience.
And then finally, I act to care for you. You improve your care quotient, and you're now experiencing empathy. That's what it's all about, putting those 3 simple steps into practice.
All right, here's your moment of truth. How many of you got tears in your eyes about the story? Wait, keep your hands up. 3 guys, 4 guys. All the rest are like, "I'm not raising my hand. I'm not raising my hand." You, not only did you have tears in your eyes, you had that lump in your throat, right? If your woman wasn't with you, you would have been like, huh? Yeah. It's like, "Oh, I think I'm getting sick. My glands are swollen." That was touching. That was very touching. So, how do you feel about that sacrificial fruit of empathy that the military guy demonstrated for his wife? How does that make you feel? How much? Yeah. Okay, Alden. How does it make you feel?
Well, it may not be on that same subject, but it just reminds me that that's how Jesus is with us.
Okay, that's good.
He walks with us even though we don't see him. So I kind of got that kind of thing.
That's good. That's good. I would want to know, God forbid something like that happened to me. Claudine and I watched God's Not Dead last night. We hadn't seen it. And so I was amazed at the fact that in that storyline, you know, there were a couple of different stories, and I'm not going to go into it. If you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. You need to see it. But there's a very successful business guy, and he fell in love with or had a relationship with this other girl, and she wound up getting cancer. And when she finally, they were meeting for dinner and to celebrate, and she says, you know, he's there to celebrate a success in his business. He's a jerk is what he is, but nonetheless, he's there to celebrate something. And she's there all serious, and she goes, I'm going to die, I have cancer. And he goes, relationship over. See ya. Just as plain and simple as that. And your hope is that when you commit to somebody, that's not going to be the way that the relationship is. You hope that if you get diagnosed with something, if something happens to you, catastrophic, whatever the case may be, that your spouse is going to be there with you to support you, to protect you, to love you, you know, to be all those things. Because life would be hell to try to do that on your own. I'm not saying it's not possible, but when you have the love and compassion and the devotion of another person that has your best interest at heart, it makes all the difference in the world. That's why I'm really nice to my wife. Because if anything happens to me, payback, you know. You call it karma, you call it anything you want. The reality of it is, you know, you don't want them playing games with you at your expense, you know. You feel me?
Yeah.
Are you empathizing? Okay. Yes.
Well, you know, my wife was sick for a long time, but for 3.5 years, she was in a facility, and then she passed away. And I used to visit her like every other day, you know, and I missed that, even though she really wasn't with me. You know, I had a physical person, but not a personality. But I miss just being able to go see her and, you know, just care for her.
Yeah, of course. Ladies, how many of you, you know, when you're sleeping next to your spouse, you don't have to be laying on top of each other. You could be just reaching out and touching them with your toe, but just knowing that they're there makes you feel more comfortable. How many of you are like that? Okay? Some of you may like them laying all over you. I mean, that's fine, but when it comes to the point where you're both hot or whatever the case may be, and I'm talking temperature, okay, that, you know, it's just nice to know they don't have to be holding me, they don't have to be, but I know that they're there. And I think that men are the same way, we just don't like to admit it, you know, because we're so much stronger. But the fact still remains is, you know, they say that sometimes those that are married wish they weren't, and those that are not wish they were. And the thing is that you may go through your times of being single and you think, this is so great, man. I do what I want when I want. I don't have to answer to anybody, but the bottom line is there are those times when you say, I wish I had somebody to share this with. Because being alone only is so good for so long in so many different things. God intended for us to be with the opposite sex. Let me go to Ozzy first, and then I'll come to you.
I think that it's also healthy for us, that it makes us healthier. Because when I went into my car accident 11 years ago, I was in a coma for like 7 days, and I was in ICU for about 22 days. And Sonia didn't leave my side. I mean, she was at the hospital for 22 days. She was there, and according to what I hear, is that when she did leave, the time that she did leave, because she had to go home, you know, she didn't even make it home because they tried to call her back because it had gotten worse. Because she, I guess, I don't know, maybe they know. And then she had to come back. When she came back, I came back. And I think that had to do a lot. Her being there had to do a lot with my recovery. I think that had she not been there the way that she was with me, right there, 22 days, I think that, who knows, it better have been 100 days in ICU rather than just 20. I think it's health. It just gives you life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Laura?
Continue with this.
I'm sorry?
Continue with this Tom. I mean, when my mom was passing away, the night that she was passing away, he laid next to me and my mom. He was on one side, I was on the other. I couldn't have been as strong for my mom as nor for him. I held her down the whole night and all that stuff, and I couldn't have done that if it weren't for him being strong for me. The next day was horrible once she finally passed, but I was able to stay strong, and we both talked to her as she was getting ready to go.
It's very important to be able to have that other person to rely on, you know, to be able to confide in, to be able to share your weaknesses and your strengths, because you can put on that facade of being strong and I don't need anybody or anything. The fact is that's not how God created you to be. God created us as emotional beings who actually rely on human touch, human emotion, human sensitivity. All of those things, that's the way that we were wired, to be able to rely on that, to find that one person that you can let your walls down with, you know, that you can actually be who you really are. You know, no facade, no, you want to play that out to everybody else, that's fine, but you need that person that can be, you can be you, whoever that is, with that other person. It's imperative that you find that soulmate. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to take care of my wife. I didn't do it out of duty. I wanted to take care of her and help her as much as I could.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing. All right, look at Matthew 5:15 through 16. It says, here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God's not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If you make light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. And now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. Matthew 6:1 says, be especially careful when you're trying to be good, so that you don't make a performance out of it. It might be good theater, but the God who made you won't be applauded. When you do something for someone else, don't call attention to yourself. You've seen them in action, I'm sure. Play actors, I call them. Treating prayer meeting and street corner alike as a stage. Acting compassionate as long as someone is watching. Playing the crowds. They get applause, true, but that's all they get. When you help someone out, don't think about how it looks. As Nike would say, just do it. Quietly, unobtrusively. That is the way that your God who conceived you in love, working behind the scenes, helps you out. James 2:18 through 20. I can already hear one of you agreeing by saying, that sounds good. You take care of the faith department, I'll handle the works department. No, not so fast. You can no more show me your works apart from your faith than I can show you my faith apart from my works. Faith and works, works and faith, they fit together, hand in glove. Do I hear you professing to believe in the one and only God, but then observe you complacently sitting back as if you had done something wonderful? That's just great. Demons do that. But what good does it do to them? Use your heads. Do you suppose for a minute that you can cut faith and works in two and not end up with a corpse on your hands? Pretty good stuff. I happen to like the Message Bible. I like the way that they speak. Proverbs 27:5 says a spoken reprimand is better than approval that's never expressed. Just remember, when you reprimand somebody, remove that log from your eye before you start pointing out the speck in somebody else's eye. Okay? And you always reprimand in love. In love. Key words. If I asked you, if you met a couple that was newly engaged, how important is working at caring for their mate going to be? I would hope that you would tell them extremely important. You have to be able to express to somebody how important it is to care for the way that they care for their spouse. And what gets in the way of being intentionally caring to the other person? What gets in the way? It's that PS thing. PS. P as in Paul.
Yeah.
Okay? Pride and selfishness. Okay? Some of us grew up in families or cultures with very little demonstration of affection. There was a guy that joked about a husband from such a family. He loved his wife for 40 years. He loved his wife for 40 years so much that he almost told her. I grew up in a family where my dad wasn't very affectionate. He didn't say the I love yous. He didn't hug you. He didn't kiss you. He bought you things. That's the way he showed you affection. Now, at that time, I was okay with that. You know? But that's the way he tried to be the provider. My mom was the affectionate one, my biological mom. But I lost her. I didn't lose her. I just got separated from her through divorce at 13. So my stepmom wasn't the affectionate one because she was married to the guy that likes to show his affection through buying things. So to come into this whole Christianity thing, and maybe I've said this before, but you know, when it came time when I first started coming to the church, and we were meeting in here when I first started coming to the church. I've been coming here for almost 19 years. And I used to sit in the very back corner. I used to come with my wife. And when it came time where the pastor would say, all right, get up, shake hands with your neighbor, welcome in the neighborhood. So, man, I ain't shaking nobody's hand. I don't want to get up and say hi to nobody. I don't even know these fools. I don't want to do nothing. I ain't having it. And then someone wants to come up and give you a hug. It's like, man, get off of me. I don't even know you. You know? And then it was like, you know, a guy wanting to hug a guy. It's like, that's not the way I just, oh, heck no. You know? That was just total foreign for me. And now I'm a hugger. You know? Jesus changed me.
But I'll never forget how even back then, when you did not know Christ, you said, I will go to church with you so that the kids see us together in there. You did not, it was not your intention to get saved. You were okay with who you were.
That's not right.
But you wanted to come just for the children. And so that they could see that we both got up and we drove to church. And I think that was such a beautiful thing that you would do that for us. Because there's so many other spouses that maybe would not have done that. And it was through that the Lord touched your heart, and here we are today.
Here we are today. Let me give you one. I'm not sure if we're clapping for her again.
No. And just so you know, people, we were at a thing with the school, and somebody said, what are your qualifications? And I said, we live it. We're not just here giving you a lesson out of a book. We've practiced this stuff. We have learned not to be pride and selfish. We have learned, and some of you, may look at us and think, they're a little rough, whatever the case may be, but you know what? We're walking it. Yeah. We have put this stuff into practice. Here is a man who had to learn how to be selfless, because I was a woman that had 3 children that basically told him, my kids will come first. At that moment, I was trying to find who I was. I didn't have an understanding. I was watching him. I really didn't trust him, even though we were married, because we weren't, we've come a long way. So we are a family that has practiced this stuff that we're learning. I've practiced, you've practiced, we've lived it, we've walked it.
Everything, and one more thing about us, and then we'll move on because we're being selfish. But here's the thing. Everything that could possibly be against you in a relationship starting off, we had going against us. She's Hispanic, I'm white, okay? She's from a Catholic background. I'm Jewish. I was never married. She had 3 kids. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
We got married after 120 days of knowing each other. That's just stupid. Okay? That's just stupid. Okay? Looking back, there is no other reason other than God's grace that has brought us together. We are a blended, every description of the possible word of blended, that's what we are. There is no possible statistical reason why we should be together and have made it this far. Okay? We're going to be celebrating 19 years next year. Okay? So, and I know that's not a long time compared to some that have been married for much longer. But from who we are and who we were and our backgrounds and everything, God gets the glory. Because if it wasn't for God, she would have killed me a long time ago. Probably twice. Okay? So let me give you this last scripture. It's Luke 10:30 through 36. It says, Jesus answered by telling the story. There once was a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On the way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, they beat him up, they went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same road, but when he saw him, he angled across to the other side, and then a Levite religious man showed up, and he also avoided the injured man. A Samaritan traveling the road came on him, and when he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds, and then he lifted him onto his donkey, led him to an inn, and made him comfortable. And in the morning, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take good care of him. If it costs anything more, put it on my bill. I'll pay you on my way back." What do you think? Which of the 3 became a neighbor to the man attacked by the robbers? I want you to see again why we say that empathy is at the heart of the gospel. God didn't pass us by in our separation from God. Like the Samaritan in the story, God acted. God cares about each and every one of us. He cares for you and you and you, even me. And his care is the ultimate model for caring, not only in a marriage relationship, but any other relationship. Now, if you tip a mental walk through your spouse's day, before you meet the evening, or before you meet for the evening, prime yourself to see the circumstances through their eyes. Visualize what they go through in their day before they come home. Or visualize what your stay-at-home spouse has gone through. And visualize that and see things through their eyes so that you can appreciate the day that they've had, good or bad, and act accordingly. And maybe even a suggestion would be to make a list of acts that you can do to show care for your spouse. Let me be very clear, the list of acts. Never mind. See the twisted ones. Or even spend some time thinking about the small things that you could do which show your love. Make a list and try to do one, maybe one time a week for the rest, or one a week for a few weeks. Yes?
Can I share a note real quick?
What?
Can I share a note real quick?
Can you share a what?
A note.
A note?
Yeah.
Real quick.
As a husband, I am to satisfy my wife with her needs and share my life with her. That means all that I am and all that I have is for her. God's arithmetic is 1 + 1 = 1. There is no part of our lives that we do not share.
That's good. Very good. Frame it. No, really. You should frame it. He's like, well, then she'll see it all the time. What? So, we're trying to get to the point where we really fully envelop this empathy thing, that we can fully get to the point where we can empathize. So I want to encourage you, try to wrap your head around that. Try to put that into practice. Try to do that. Okay? Any questions or comments or anything like that? Yes.
Tomorrow will be our first anniversary.
Tomorrow?
So
awesome. 1 year tomorrow. Awesome. Are you making sure he takes his medication?
Yes. Well, when coming to fusion, I think that's what's blessed us with no argument. We haven't had one real good argument.
I mean, you want to know what the definition of real good is. All right. So let me give you a couple things.